Colorado's car scene has more to offer than just four-wheeling. Don't believe me? Let me show you.
No, your eyes do not deceive you. And all of that is a lot of Alfa Romeo.
Hey everyone, welcome to the video and my brand new series, The Car Enthusiast Guide to Colorado. To kick off this new series, you find me at the Denver Auto Show. One of the oldest auto shows in the US, just behind the Chicago and New York auto shows, this event is held at the Colorado Convention Center with the iconic Big Blue Bear, known as I See What You Mean, peering through the window as if to scope out why so many people have turned up. And they've turned up for one simple reason. Not only is the Denver Auto Show the third oldest in the US, it's also one of the most highly anticipated events held here at the Convention Center. To find out why, and to show you what the Denver Auto Show has to offer, let's go around and check out some of the machinery the OEMs have brought along this year. Starting with the Dodge Hornet here, and we'll get into the specs and all that stuff a little bit later, but for now I want to talk about the looks. Now, it looks like I can't take my own advice because I ended up just talking about the specifications and all that stuff about the car anyway, so let's actually talk about the look. So speaking about the Alfa Romeo tonal, you'll notice there's a lot of Alfa Romeo tonal in this design, but with quite a few Dodge flavors. If you look at the front here, it's got that signature kind of bandit design that was popularized by the Challenger and the Charger, and then later the Durango as well. You'll see there's no crosshair. Dodge is moving away from the crosshair. They've been moving away, really, I would think, since the Hellcat Challenger and Charger came out. But if I remember correctly, it was seriously pushed somewhere in 2017, 2018 from what I heard. So no crosshair grille, Dodge is going away from that. And actually, Ram's going away from that too, as you'll notice with all the DT1500s, no crosshair. Either way though, let's get back to the Hornet here. Scowling face, really angry face. Personally, I like it. Some people may not like the angry puppy sort of look, but I like aggressive cars. But that's not to say I don't like happy, friendly cars. I love the first gen Neon for that. So as we can see, you have the Dodge flag stripes, which as far as I can tell is kind of part of their new logo, which is funny because years and years ago I was saying Dodge should absolutely do this because that would be, to me, a cool logo. What would be even better is if it was illuminated. It isn't. So yeah, the face here has a lot of Alfa Romeo in it because honestly pretty much the whole car is Alfa Romeo, just with Dodge flavoring. So this is largely an Alfa Romeo face, but with Dodge flavoring. I mean, as you can see here, this is very Charger wide body. I believe, is it Durango SRT? I believe the Durango SRT has this as well. Charger. If you see here at the ends on the chin here, thicker on the chin splitter, thicker here and then cuts in towards the middle. To me, total Gen 5 Viper. Total Gen 5 Viper design cue here. So what was that old Dodge saying from the 90s? There's a little Viper in every Dodge. It would seem that's true even in the Viper's absence. And here we have the car IA. Forgot was a possibility would show up at this show and be the car US Toyota fans didn't know they wanted, because they didn't think it was going to happen, right? The GR Corolla. Why does this car exist? This car exists because Toyota made the GR Yaris. Now, we all know that car because that thing's been the darling of the entire automotive industry, right? And US, that might be an announcement. I might have to go here relatively soon, but we will continue. This car No, the Yaris, right, was the darling of the entire automotive industry. And why is that the case? Because it's one of the few all-wheel drive, rally homologation, manual hot hatchbacks sold in the modern era, right? And US car enthusiasts, as much as we don't have a lot of small cars, there's a lot of us actually that want small, fast hatchbacks like this, even if we're not as big a demographic as those types are in Europe. So the US guys, the US Toyota fans clamored and clamored and clamored. When can we get something like this? Why can't we get a GR Yaris? This is bullcrap. This is nonsense. Why don't we get something fun and cool like a GR Yaris? And Toyota US listened and made this car the GR Corolla. And here's the thing that's better. Here's the best thing about it. Unlike a lot of Euro spec to US spec cars where they get watered down and just complete and they just end up becoming a lot lamer than their Euro spec counterparts, this isn't one of those cars because it has the drivetrain from the GR Yaris, but with important changes to make it fit on the Corolla platform. So one of those things likely is a longer drive shaft for obvious reasons. The wheelbase is a lot longer, but that three-cylinder engine that everybody loves, from the GR Yaris is the same as it is in the Yaris. So it's a 1.6 liter, three-cylinder turbocharged engine, except it's more popular here than it is in the Yaris. Now, why would it be more popular? Normally when we get cars like this, again, US spec cars, they're less powerful, they're just lamer overall. So why does this make more power than the GR Yaris? Well, simply, this is heavier than a GR Yaris. It's bigger than a GR Yaris, so obviously a GR Yaris only has 3 doors, the 2 at the front, the tailgate. This, 5 doors, 4 here, 5 at the back. So, where the GR Yaris makes 268 horsepower, and unfortunately I don't remember the torque figure, probably somewhere between 230, 250 pound-feet of torque. This makes 300 horsepower and 273 pound-feet of torque. Yes, that puts it in Ford Focus RS territory. And just like the Focus RS, this is all-wheel drive. And in fact, that is very much like the Toyota GR Yaris. So this really is like Toyota's answer to the Ford Focus RS, even if it is a few years late. No, your eyes do not deceive you. Ford decided to treat us all with an appearance from the 2024 Ford Mustang Dark Horse. You likely already know the story. 5.0 Coyote V8 making 500 horsepower and 418 pound-feet of torque. 6-piston Brembo calipers up front, wrapping 13.9-inch rotors in the front. Unfortunately, I don't really know what it's in the rear. We got this really interesting, it's not misty chrome, it's not the right color, but it is this color shift paint job that Mustangs have had over the years. So I think those who have new edges might find this Mustang of particular appeal. Something that I find really, really interesting to me, something that's really interesting to me is how it's not that the aero package is particularly tame, but having seen the Mach 1 and then this just kind of makes me think, oh, it's an S650 Mach 1, sort of. I mean, you got the front splitter, and you have a semi-similar, it's different in style, but it's very similar in size, rear wing. But regardless, this, I think, is what everyone is excited about. And considering the Challenger and Camaro are going pretty soon, and even if the Challenger comes back, it might just have the 3-liter twin-turbo Hurricane straight 6, well, this will be the only pony car, or muscle car, whatever you want to call it, that has a V8. How long that is, I don't know. Also, you can get this in a 6-speed Tremec manual. I don't know which specific one it is. I think the TR6060, that's in things like the C6 Corvette, the S197 facelifted Shelby GT500, the Gen 5 Viper, the Gen 4 Viper. I think that transmission is being phased out. I think the new Tremec is the TR670, something like that. This may or may not, I think personally, it may very well have that new Tremec 6-speed transmission. But either way, thank God, we have a 5.0 Coyote V8 Mustang that has a manual transmission, right? In a world where everyone's going to smaller engines, Dodge, or where they're throwing the model away, the Camaro, or where they're going largely auto only, it's so nice that Ford is giving this a sort of last hurrah. But this isn't totally surprising. We've seen a lot of automakers do stuff like this, but I do kind of have to wonder, they keep doing them more and more and more and more, and guess what? They're really popular. Really, really popular. So it does make me wonder if these automakers are seeing this popularity and being like, oh, we can't really get rid of these models. They're still really popular. We can't just phase them out. Like, yeah, we got to add all our electric models to offset cars like this. But we need to make sure something like this still survives because, guess what? They tend to draw a lot more buzz, especially in these times. Along with the cars, automakers send representatives who you can ask your car-savvy and not car-savvy questions. Is the Dark Horse in Ford Mustang Dark Horse inspired by the Katy Perry song? Did Kia get rebranded to KN? Where's the A? You can also ask for a virtual brochure sent via email. The old physical ones got phased out. Or do whatever else the OEMs have available. For example, Ford's sim rig back behind me. This year it's an off-road race, but when I last did it in 2019, it was an S550 Mustang on the Nürburgring GP circuit and a shortened version of that track. Speaking of things the automakers have available, new for this year is the indoor EV test track, providing you an opportunity to drive a selection of electric cars right next to the main auto show. It's really, really convenient. However, if this is anything like what I'm about to show you, or the strangely and unfortunately absent Camp Jeep, then lines are likely to be very long, in which case you're probably going to want to get here early so you can skip the lines. These sign-in drives are also very popular and, unsurprisingly, often have long lines as a result. The Challenger usually being the favorite and, as a result, having the longest line. This is something you might want to do because beyond the lineup consisting of traditional ICE vehicles, you get to take them for a spin around the block, which it kind of goes without saying is a lot more room to play with than the EVs can afford inside, what with them being right next to the auto show. That said, if it were me, I would do both.
Well, okay, I didn't actually do both, but I did do the sign and drive. So here's a couple of quick impressions that I got from the vehicles that I drove. Starting with the Dodge Challenger RT Scat Pack wide body. This wasn't the first vehicle I drove, but it was definitely the vehicle I was most excited to drive because I've ridden in RT level or certainly RT Scat Pack level Challengers for a couple of years because I've gone to the auto show for a couple of years. And so finally being able to drive it myself was such a treat. There were three main, and keep in mind, this is like a 10 to 12 minute drive. You're not really going to glean any important impressions from a car in 12 minutes, other than the one that I did find almost immediately. So, first thing, it's very fast. Don't let anybody fool you. Oh, it's a 4,300 pound vehicle with less than 500 horsepower. It's not fast. Bullcrap. It's fast, and it's faster than any car that most people have driven. Right? People, I've said this a million times, people have accidents in Corollas and Camrys and all these regular cars, right? They couldn't hope to handle something with 485 horsepower. So it is more than fast enough if you're not jaded by, I don't know, 700 horsepower NA monsters or 2,000 horsepower behemoths, right? It is more than perfectly fast. It's also surprisingly comfortable. Having said that, the suspension is firm, but it's on the comfortable side of firm. It's not jarring, right? It's a very comfortable ride. I could see you using a Challenger as a Grand Tourer, road tripping across the country very easily. Having said that, though, the seats are not good for somebody of my stature. The bolsters are wider than my body, so what ended up happening is my elbows were just jamming into the bolsters. That wasn't comfortable. The ride was comfortable, the seats not so much. So if you're fairly narrow and fairly short like me, you're probably going to want to change the seats. The bolsters are made for bigger body types. They just won't suit you very well. And those are the three most obvious things that I gleaned from my roughly 12-minute drive in the Challenger. Next on the list of cars I drove is the new Jeep Grand Cherokee, actually. I don't remember if it was the L, which is the 7-seater, if it was the 5-seater. I think it was probably the 7-seater, the Grand Cherokee L. The three biggest impressions I was left with in, again, roughly my 12-minute drive were that, if you want to talk comfortable, that is comfortable. It had the air suspension in it. It's an automotive cliche, but you just glide. You just glide over the road. It's wonderful. It is supremely comfortable. I did not know you could have a car be that just supple on the road. It was incredible. The next thing, it technically is a fairly big car, especially with it being the L, but it didn't feel that big. It didn't feel preposterous anyway. And again, I'm fairly small. I'm pretty small, so if a car is big or feels big, it's really going to feel big because I don't fit in the cabin. But I fit in the cabin just fine. And when I say don't fit in the cabin, I mean imagine a baby in a Ram 2500 or an F250 or something, right? That's the sort of discrepancy that I worry about. I didn't feel that at all in the Grand Cherokee. Honestly, it felt perfectly to scale. It obviously felt like an SUV, and I had good visibility, high seating position, all the rest of it. But again, it just didn't feel cumbersome to drive around the city, which is impressive because Denver kind of sucks to drive around. It's not New York, but a long, big vehicle, especially with the bike lanes that we have, is an added factor for navigating that can be very annoying. And it really, I paid no mind to it in the Grand Cherokee. So that was quite nice. And I think we might have touched on the sound system for a moment. That, or it might have been the Grand Wagoneer. But yeah, we didn't really have... If honestly, the only other impression that I could think about was that the engine was quiet. It was very quiet inside. Actually, that would be the bigger impression. Very quiet inside. The engine, extremely smooth. Not much noise, vibration, no harshness because of the air suspension. So a very, very put together, buttoned down vehicle for sure. And lastly, though technically not lastly, because I did actually drive a Jeep Grand Wagoneer, but for some reason I can't find the footage, I just might not have it. So the last vehicle that I drove that I have footage of is the Chrysler Pacifica Hybrid. Now honestly, I've only got 2 impressions from this just because, once again, it's a 12-minute drive and it's a minivan, right? And that's not to be derogatory in the sense of, oh, it's a minivan, it sucked, but it's not meant to go fast. And it was the Chrysler Pacifica Hybrid, so really not meant to go fast. So one of the immediate impression that I got was before we even started driving the vehicle, was when we were just getting in, and my sister was actually with me and recording the footage. That's why the perspective in the footage looks the way that it does. And after getting in, after trying to take my backpack and the Challenger and her bag and the camera equipment, after the relative hassle of working all that out, having the sliding door and just stepping into a car, stepping into the vehicle, that was nice. That was really, really nice. I can absolutely see why. And again, I don't mean this derogatorily, but just due to demographics, I can totally see why soccer moms or just families that have a lot of kids, or perhaps relatively unruly kids, relatively rambunctious kids, love having the minivan, because, oh my god, not having to like step up or really step down, not having to just haul your bag in between the front seat and the back passenger seats, just being able to easily step in and step out, see everything. It makes the process of transporting a family so much easier. It makes me question why people aren't buying more minivans now and they're just getting SUVs. And I kind of know why, because of the stigma of minivans. But if you have a family, especially a big family, minivans, or certainly a van, is really the only logical choice, just because of how stupidly practical they are. And that's not even talking about the stow and go system that Chrysler minivans have. Anyway though, the next impression, this one unfortunately is negative. The brake pedal in the Pacifica Hybrid felt so incredibly fragile. Like, if I had tried to make an emergency stop, it really felt like the brake pedal would just snap. Would just snap in the middle of where the pedal is and where the pad, for lack of a better word, I say pad, where the foot part of the brake pedal is. So you have the hinge, you have the arm of the brake pedal, and then the footrest part of it. It would break in the middle of the arm of the brake pedal. That's what it felt like. It was just, I didn't like it at all. It felt super weak, super fragile. Even in non-emergency stops, it felt like I was gonna break it. So I really didn't like that. That's one of those things you get used to, but can't say I was a fan. Anyway, back to the rest of the video.
Don't think it's just automakers attending though. Other exhibits include this one from the local FCCA region, this one from the local Forney Museum, and this General Customs and Classics exhibit. Do keep in mind that these non-OEM exhibits are subject to change year to year though, as are the OEM exhibits actually, which we'll dive into more later. Indeed, there's much to see and quite a bit to do at the show. However, let's head back to the office briefly to talk about the event more honestly.
So speaking on the auto show more honestly, oh boy, where do I begin? Okay, let me start off by saying I still 1000% believe there is a place for auto shows at convention centers in modern society, right? I 100% believe that. And obviously I'm a bit biased, but I think auto shows should persist to be a thing that people can enjoy, should persist to be an event that people can look forward to on the weekends, that they can attend and enjoy. But I would be lying if I said that there's even more reasons to attend the Denver Auto Show now, whether it be in 2023 or 2024 when I'm recording this, than a decade ago, because there isn't. There is not more reasons to attend now than there were back then. In fact, there's less reasons to attend, and I'm sorry to say that, but as you heard in the video, so at some point earlier in the video, I said the strangely absent Camp Jeep. Yeah, and that used to be, and here's the thing, it wasn't a staple of the Denver Auto Show because it's been at multiple, Camp Jeep has been at multiple auto shows, whether it be national auto shows like the North American International Auto Show or regional shows like the Denver Auto Show or various ones in Texas and other states alike. But Camp Jeep is absent. And that's extremely strange because that brought in, I'm sure anyone who's been to the Denver Auto Show for multiple times, multiple years can tell you just how long the lines usually are for Camp Jeep. It's like hour-long waits, and even though they had 4 vehicles, you're only fitting 3 to 4 people in a car, in one of those Jeeps at a time. So, yeah, the lines used to be ridiculous. I remember numerous years not going on the Camp Jeep rides just because it would take up almost the entire time of the auto show just to make it through the lines. And now that's absent. Mercedes, nowhere to be found at the Denver Auto Show. Apparently, nowhere to be found at a lot of auto shows across the country, including the bigger ones, which is quite a shame. Stellantis just said recently that they're going to be pulling out of auto shows themselves. Now, apparently, they're on the 2024 map. And here's the thing: it's a little complicated because they said, I say a little complicated, it's confusing, because they said that they would allow dealerships at their own discretion to decide whether or not they were going to attend auto shows. So it's not that Stellantis isn't there at all, or at least for certain shows. It's just whether or not your local dealer says, yeah, this is going to be worthwhile to attend, and for us to take our own vehicular stock and showcase them at the show. But Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, and Ram are at the 2024 Denver Auto Show. I don't know if that decision was made before Stellantis at large said, yeah, we're not going to attend at all. So I don't know if that's Larry H. Miller or whoever dealership that's decided to attend, but they're at least there. But Stellantis isn't going to be at auto shows for long, last I heard. Scion doesn't count because Scion died anyway. Suzuki left the U.S. ages ago, but even that kind of leads to my point that there's fewer and fewer automakers. I don't even think Jaguar was there in 2017, I think, which was the last time I went to the auto show before 2023. Jag was at least at the auto show. As far as I know, they're no longer there. And they still sell Jags in the US, so they didn't get Suzuki'd. But yeah, there are fewer and fewer reasons to go, and the show just keeps getting smaller. I remember one year in particular, it might have been 2017, maybe 2016 when we went, and usually the room that they always get for the auto show, which is like right at the front of the convention center, where the big blue bear is peeking in. It's really right at the front. That entire room, that entire space would be open, completely open. And then one year, might have been 2017, they had this whole big area, this whole big blocked off, cut off, because the show shrunk. And at that point in 2017, we still had Camp Jeep. So the lack of Camp Jeep is a very recent thing. I'm not sure how recent, but it's recent. And to touch on why I think it's still worth going to the auto show, just so that this isn't completely doom and gloom and you shouldn't attend, because we'll get into why that would be bad in a minute. Where else are you going to go where you can sit in some of the newest machinery, or at least from the last model year, sit in the newest machinery, and in the case of the auto show, test drive a handful of those cars without being accosted by dealership staff, without feeling like you're wasting their time because you have no plans to buy whatsoever, or at the very least, really haven't made your mind up and just need a test drive, without feeling like you're wasting your time or being pressured into buying the vehicle then and there or within the week, right? Where else are you going to do that? You're really not going to do that anywhere else, unless maybe you make friends with someone who happens to own that car, and hey, people are nice, they might allow you to do it, but that requires getting out of your comfort zone and seeking somebody out a lot more than just attending an auto show, where that's kind of the whole point, where you can just do that, save for some cars that are actually blocked off or locked. But where else do you get to do that? Where else do you get to, not only that, where else do you get to do that where there's a bunch of automakers in one place, right? Because a lot of dealerships are pretty specific with what automakers they sell. Larry H. Miller, for example, does a lot of Chrysler, Dodge, Ram, and Jeep products. I don't know the names of many. Oh, O'Mara Ford, right? They do Ford products very specifically. So, and O'Mara Ford and Larry H. Miller Dodge are on completely different sides of 25, basically, or 225 more or less in the case of Larry H. Miller Dodge. But the point is that's on completely different sides of the city, basically, or completely different sides of I-70, right? The south side versus the north side. You're not going to get a place you're not going to easily find a place that has all the newest machinery in one place that you can sit in, let alone drive, like an auto show. And that's why I think, conceptually at least, the auto show is still worth attending. Having said that, I don't begrudge anybody for not attending because of how small the show has become compared to 10 years ago when I went as a kid, before Cody's Car Conundrum was a thing. As a counterpoint, though, and to get into what I said I'd talk about later, it's a vicious cycle because fewer automakers show up, fewer people attend, fewer automakers show up, and it's a very vicious cycle. So again, I don't want to say go regardless of what you think because we need to save the auto show. I don't think that's your responsibility. I don't think that's many regular civilians' responsibility. However, what I will say is, if you still want to enjoy a group of automakers in one space where you can sit in the cars, where you can ask representatives, they're not dealership staff, and by dealership staff I'm talking about the really pushy kind. If you still want to enjoy that, then definitely go this year and maybe next year, because I don't want to sound all doom and gloom and fearmonger, but I don't know how long the Denver Auto Show is going to keep going, let alone any regional show. Because go while there's even a little still worth going for would be my suggestion. But I don't begrudge you for not. I don't have a problem with you not, because it has gotten smaller, and I tell you what, Cars and Coffee is very popular, and a lot of cool stuff shows up. That's not just modern machinery. Plus, you get to see the modified, which has its own charm. But yeah, that is how I honestly feel about the show. Conceptually, absolutely still worth it. If you're not that jaded, definitely go while the show is still worth attending, even on a minor level. But I can definitely see why the numbers have shrunk. I can.
And that has been your guide to the Denver Auto Show. I hope you all enjoyed. If you did, please make sure to like, comment, share, and consider subscribing. And if you do subscribe, thank you very much. I really do appreciate that. Please make sure you hit the little notification bell and then all notifications, that way you're notified every time I upload. Let me know what you think of the show and what you hope to see in future installments of this series. I will see you all next time.